everybody, it's Mark, the Family Woodworker. Hey, this week we make an elevated storage container garden, a project most any homeowner can tackle.
We had a small garden last year, which pretty much helped to feed the neighborhood rabbits. And crawling around on our knees wasn't much fun either, so my wife asked me to make an elevated garden. I had found a few videos for making basic wood boxes with 4x4 posts, and these were fine, but I thought we could build vegetable garden boxes that were a little more attractive.
I like vegetables on my cheeseburger.
I like the idea of starting with storage bins. 3 of them in line measure out to be 58 by 28 inches, and that will be the outer dimensions of our frame. So it was off to my favorite Lonard's Depot store for supplies, and I'll be using 1x6 treated lumber for the entire build. I liked the idea of using storage bins because they have a reinforced lip on the underside that helps support weight, and a standard 1x6 fits pretty nicely along those supports. I'll start with the frame legs and cut them to a length of 31 3/4 inches. That way I'll get good height off the ground and still get 3 full cuts from a 96-inch piece of lumber. I'll also rip them in half so I can build L-shaped legs for the corners of each box. I'm making 2 elevated garden boxes, so I'll need 8 legs in total, or 16 individual boards a little less than 3 inches wide. Using some Titebond 3 exterior glue on the edges, I'll use these trim head exterior deck screws to build each leg. These screws are self-tapping, of course, but I pre-drilled the holes just to make sure that I didn't split any of the wood. This turned out to be sort of a production line activity, cranking out these leg parts as fast as I could build them, resulting in this nice stack of lumber. See more projects on thefamilywoodworker.com.
Shameless plug.
The upper frame rails will be cut at that full 58-inch length, so I marked the cuts and moved the stock over to the miter saw. I'll also mention at this point that you don't need a table saw or a miter saw to do this project. A jigsaw, a small circular saw, or even a hand saw can make these cross cuts. We'll talk more about your lumber options a little later in the video. Moving on to assemble the rails to the legs, I used 5/16" carriage bolts and pre-drilled out a small template so that my drill hole pattern would be consistent on each leg. Since you really don't need to hear me babble on about how to attach bolts, let's relax into a small construction montage. While I actually think this basic upper frame could hold the weight of 3 dirt fill containers, I'm going to add some cross and bottom support rails to stiffen up the whole structure and add some more support for the weight of the dirt. I'll start with cutting the cross supports that will fit on the inside of the frame and support the lips of the containers in between the 3. The vertical part of the cross support will be another 1x6 ripped in half, and I'll cut some thinner pieces at 1.5 inches wide to provide enough of a lip for the 2 containers to rest on. More glue and some exterior deck screws will hold the top piece onto the support rail, and they'll fit on center to the marked line we made between each container. Carrying the pencil mark down, I pre-drilled some holes for 2-inch screws, and then I'll get each cross support positioned and attached to the 1x6 frame rails. The same drill, pardon the pun, on the other side, and that'll complete the upper construction. It's pretty hefty and will support a lot of weight.
I'd like to tell you this frame design is my idea, but I'm not that smart.
Years ago, I used to install pool tables, and pretty much every frame was designed the same way in order to support the weight of the slate. You might notice my frame uses the same design principles. There was one more piece I wanted to run the length of the elevated table, but resting underneath the 3 containers that supported the bottom. Using another rip cut from a 1x6, I glued and screwed together a T-shaped rail. To figure out where to mount the underside rail, I turned the table upside down with the containers resting inside the frame. This will show me where to attach the side table boards that support this rail. I screwed in the side support boards on both ends and then secured the T-shaped bottom rail with 2-inch screws. To finish the table construction, I added long pieces to trim out the front and back of the structure, and they'll add more rigidity to the legs as well. The finished frame actually looks pretty great, and based on the leg and rail construction, should be perfect for supporting all that dirt. I had one more prep step to complete on each of the plastic storage bins. They'll need to be able to drain away excess water, or the plant roots would eventually die. I drilled some 1-inch holes in with a Forstner bit into the bottoms of the containers near the corners, but knowing that dirt would still wash out of those same holes, I used some hot glue and small pieces of fiberglass screen material to seal up the width of each hole. When I get these raised garden frames out to the yard, I'll have to finish up the prep by building in a drainage tile on the bottom of each container.
The construction should be able to hold a ton of weight. Let's find out.
Okay, just kidding.
Action.
Before adding the dirt, I'll put in some pea gravel around the holes and then cover it up with some weed blocker perforated cloth. That will allow the dirt on top to drain moisture through the cloth into the pea gravel layer and then drip out the holes. I also lightened the weight of the soil by mixing in some peat and some vermiculite. The 2 raised garden beds, or tables, found a really nice home outside our garage and up against a privacy fence. The beds actually see full sun most of the day. My son Matt also helped with the final installation and setup, including installing a raised sprinkler head.
Okay, so is that a half circle?
It's a 360. I can adjust it.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to hit here, and then it's going to hit over there and stop.
That'll be big enough.
Yep.
Thanks, Matt. And now for a project summary. My build came in at just under $100 for each table, including the storage bins. But if you don't have all those power tools, no problem. You could build this elevated garden bed using standard 1x4 lumber, only needing to cut those boards to length. Also, because I found these black storage bins are not a standard size, I didn't make build plans for this project. If you measure the outer dimension of your 3 bins, that'll be your starting point. Now, after about 9 days after setup, let's take a look at our progress.
And so even though we started to grow these inside the house to get them started, they are really taking off. And it's only been a week. I think these are radishes. Somebody can send us a note. These were sprouting from seed, so. And I'm not sure what these things are, but anyway, these elevated garden boxes are working out great.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. We hope you like and subscribe to our channel, and thanks very much for sticking around. Take care.